Continuation of Chapter 2. He started compulsively as a log crackled, sending up a stream of sparks. "Say, what's up, Hoss?" exclaimed Rivers softly. "You jumpy as a tree painter." Jim looked at him and then back at the paper, wetting his lips. "Tom, I've got to know what this says. All of it." "Better hunt you up somebody as can read writing then." "How, though? Where?" "Wouldn't be hard, boss. Take it down to Laramie or Fort Hall." "Too far. I want to know soon." "Well, the Dulles then. That ain't but a few days' ride, the way the buckskin of yours skitters." Jim folded the note carefully and tucked it into his pouch. Tom was right. This was white man's medicine. It would take a white man to unravel its meaning. He moved restlessly across the little clearing, every nerve of him as tight as a bowstring. The wind had risen. A wolf or two sulked out there just beyond the circle of firelight, drawn by the smell of meat. Jim suddenly picked up a pebble and hurled it at a pair of shining gold eyes. "Huss, you want to tell me who Johnny is?" Tom said quietly. Jim was silent a moment. The dark out yonder seemed lonesomer than ever without the golden eyes, and his thoughts kept going back and back. He turned abruptly and returned to the fire. Tom was his friend, and a thorough white man. He'd tell him. Maybe it would help. He dropped down beside Tom. "I reckon it's my brother Jonathan," he said. "Your brother? What the devil? A crow named Jonathan?" "He ain't crow. He's white like me." Tom stared at him, his eyes traveling from the braids to the coo feather, from the claw and bead necklace to the medicine bundle dangling below Jim's left ear. "By golly, Hoss," he said slowly, "I thought you was half-breed. Didn't you grow up crow?" "Yeah, but I come from Missouri afore that, long time ago." "What happened? Injuns steal you?" "No, I run away from home. It's nigh 9 years back now." Jim hesitated, letting the past drift over him. "Tom, you ever know a trapper named Adam Russell?" "Russell? Yeah, sure. Tall, get out the road looking feller, weren't he? He turned up missing at Rendezvous way back in 35 or 36, though. I heard he got rubbed out." "He did. Blackfoot tucked his hair. Old Bill Hervey told me that soon's that I hit Taos last year. He was with him when it happened." Jim hesitated and then went on. "Russell was my uncle." "By Jiminy!" Rivers stared a moment and then eased back on his elbow and stretched his legs to the fire's warmth. He took a red clay Indian pipe out of his pouch and slowly began to stuff it with his kinnikinnick. "Go on, Hoss, if you want to." Jim nodded. He watched Tom's fingers working the tobacco and tried to sort out his thoughts. He might as well tell all of it now he was started. "Uncle Adam was my mother's brother, but she never had seen much of him. He'd been out west here in the mountains for half his life. I'd never seen him at all until one day he came to our farm in Missouri. He's been back in the States, spreeing and spending his beaver." That means spending the money he made from selling his beaver pelts. "And he was hauling for the plains. I reckon I was about ripe for busting loose from my tether anyways when he come walking in that afternoon. Seemed like it was the first time I'd ever had any fresh air in that house." He remembered that vividly enough. Tall, hawk-eyed, and swaggering, Adam Russell had seemed a being from another world, a strong, exhilarating wind that could blow a boy's smoldering wanderlust into flames. While Pa sat grim and disapproving, while Mother fluttered excitedly, and the other children stared like a row of owls from across the kitchen, Jim crept close. He listened, dazzled, to his uncle's talk of Indians and prairies and the great sky and snow-capped mountains far to the west. He took in every detail of Adam Russell's dress and speech, tingled to his boisterous laughter, drank in the wild smell of castoreum that clung to his buckskin shirt. "Seemed like I couldn't stand staying put any longer. Once I'd seen him," Jim murmured. "I never said nothing. But when he left at sunup the next morning, I followed him off. Had to stay so far behind to keep him from catching me. that I come near losing him twice. But I stuck with him somehow till we was way out across the frontier and he had to take me on with him. I never been back since. Rivers swore softly, his keen eyes searching Jim's face. So you're a farm boy from Missouri. By golly, hoss, that takes some believin'. I never took to farmin'. I always wanted to get away, do something bigger. A kid 11 years old is mighty young to run that fur, Jim. Weren't you ever homesick? I reckon I was at first, Jim smiled faintly, like when Comanches were chasing us, or we get our horses stole and have to get errors in us stealing 'em back again, or dare show a far we didn't dare show a fire and have to eat our meat raw. First time I eat raw prairie dog, woo! By God, I wished for my mother and felt mean. I'd I'd ever and felt mean I'd ever run off and left her. I missed her other times too, and I missed Johnny mighty bad. But I was scared to go back 'cause my pa beat the daylights out of me. My pa, he was a great one for beatings. He couldn't beat you now. No, but I couldn't go home now neither. Why not? You're young. Jim's smile twisted. Tom, can you see me plowing corn in Missouri? Tom was a realist. He took one look at Jim, laughed shortly, and said, no. Then he added, what'd you do after Russell went under? Oh, we was split up after that. I'd only been in the mountains about a year when the grizzly got me, and after that I lived with the crow. Tom puffed in silence for a moment, and Jim could hear the familiar night sounds. Buckskin's hooves clopping daintily over the ground at the stream's edge, the wind rustling in the cottonwoods and the fire hissing. Finally Tom said softly, Hoss, it ain't any of my business, but I'm wondering why you ain't still with them crows. That was hard to answer. Jim reached out, scratched Moki's ears, digging his fingers into the dog's coarse fur. I run away from them too, Tom. I Something happened that put me in mind of my mother. I got to feeling white. Rivers nodded as if he had expected to hear just that. Impulsively, Jim went on. I figured if I come back amongst white men, maybe everything would turn lucky for me. I get plenty of beaver and, well, I was wrong about that. He got up suddenly, restless again. I've been thinking lately maybe I was wrong to leave at all and ought to head back to Crow country, but now that paper's come. Reckon your brother sent that paper? Jim shook his head. Clean from Missouri? Ain't likely. But what if Johnny's dead? His voice dropped to a whisper. The whites of his eyes gleamed in the firelight as he turned back to Rivers. Remember the dead in that paper, Tom? When Johnny and me was kids, The phrase came to Jim's mind as crow. We knew each other's hearts. He did the best he could with it in English. We was close to one another. Maybe his spirit's all around somewheres, trying to tell me what to do. Now the beaver's all gone and you're leaving the mountains. Rivers flashed him an odd look, but covered it quickly by pulling a twig out of the fire and relighting his pipe from the blazing tip. The silence urged Jim on, and he hunkered down beside Tom again. It ain't meant that I should go to Abroska, but to some valley. That word valley, that's part of my medicine. It was in my dream. You know about medicine dreams, Tom? Not much about 'em, Hoss. Jim's hand crept up under his left braid to finger the medicine bundle, and he could feel the grizzly's teeth moving against each other inside the buckskin. Well, every crow boy's got to have one, so we'll have helpers in the war trail. There's always some kind of animal in it, a fox or otter or wolf or something. And when you wake up, the wise one tells you what the dream meant. And you find a fox or whatever it is and make a medicine bundle out of its skin or maybe its teeth or something. Then you're safe, long as you've got it with you. It turns arrows and bullets away from you and helps you shoot straight. Tom's eyes went automatically to a deep arrow scar on the side of Jim's neck, but he only nodded and said nothing. It's mighty hard to have a good dream, Jim went on, huskily. He was staring off in the dark woods, remembering. Take a long sweat bath and go afoot in the high mountains all alone. And don't eat or drink nothing. And sometimes you have to hurt yourself with a knife or make the dream come. I was pretty old for I could manage to have one. 14. Took me 3 days to top Crazy Mountain before I fell down amongst the rocks and the world got all black. The words trailed to silence as Jim thought of that most important sleep of his life. In that blackness had come the dream. 3 times in the whirling dark the old grizzly had loomed up again, alive and savage, all claws and teeth and glistening red eyes as before, but now wearing moccasins and a coup feather like a warrior. And each time Jim had shouted words at it, words like an incantation which seemed to spring into his head from somewhere or nowhere, or perhaps from that far corner of his heart where the past lay buried. For the words were not Crow, but English. The Lord is my shepherd. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I will fear no evil. So he shouted 3 times, wondering how he knew these words and what they meant, and as he did so, the beast faded away, bit by bit each time until there was only his great teeth scattered on the ground and the coup feather beside them. Then in the dream, Jim thrust the feather into his hair, gathered the teeth into his pouch, and fell into a deep and comforting sleep. Took a long breath, bringing his thoughts back with an effort to the fire-lit clearing and Tom Rivers. They was white man's words in the dream. Many horses, he said they was big medicine and never to forget 'em. Now, here they turn up in this paper. You see how the stick floats, Tom? They're telling me what to do. A long time before Rivers said anything. He lounged there and puffed his pipe and gazed with half-closed eyes into the flames. Jim began to think he wasn't going to speak at all, and moved uneasily over to his pack, half frightened at having revealed as much of himself. Never had he talked like this to anyone except many horses. Maybe his helpers would be angry. Then Tom spoke softly and calling him by his Crow name. I'm wondering, Talks Alone, if you wouldn't be happier in Absaronka than anywhere else. I'm wondering if that ain't what you ought to do. Go back. Jim turned to look at him in astonishment. It was the last thing he expected to hear. Tom, can't you read signs no better than that? I'm white. My medicine's white too. With them words in it, I bet you 6 blues my luck'll turn if I hunt up some valley where they's white folks and I live amongst them again.